Rick, thank you so much for being here, and I'm really happy to have you here. And it's really good because we play hockey together, and I'm always chasing after you at the rink, and you're really fast. I'm like, Jesus, I hate kind of having to catch up to this guy. So it's nice that you're here. You're sitting down. I don't have to chase you. We can just kind of have a conversation.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here. So you have a company now.
Driver Dave's.
Driver Dave's. Okay. Yeah. So can you tell me the story of Driver Dave's? Because I read it and it was kind of a fascinating story, which is maybe if you can kind of tell the
Sure.
audience.
So I guess the inception of it was to get into the hydrogen space. So we met with some people in industry that said there's going to be a transition out of EVs as the raw minerals and the supply chain around that industry is going to be taxing at the very least. So out of that meeting, we kind of formulated a plan to go look for a smaller transportation company that would be all easy to assume ownership and then scale and then convert the vehicles over to hydrogen. So that was the inception. And then I was doing a little bit of work with the past owner, David Wolpin, on some logistics stuff, kind of filling in supplementary for income until I started my own company, because that is a big leap between your 9-to-5 secure paycheck and then going into your own company. Right. Luckily, my wife is very stable, has a great job, so that did help that leap of faith, if you will. But dealing with Dave Wolpin, we kind of have a lot of like-minded things. He was juggling a lot of things going on at the time, so he needed something off of his plate. We needed a transportation company, so I did interview a couple companies that were for sale. Dave's wasn't for sale when I met him, but after a couple conversations and lunches, I found out that he was selling it. So he thought it would be a good idea for me to assume. So I've done an equity ownership deal. So we have a deal in place where you slowly. It's not like you have to go get that capital right off the bat,
right.
and it's a big hit. You kind of over time pay it off slowly every year. So
I want to actually talk a little bit about that, because I think that's something that I think our listeners are going to be pretty interested in, is how do you structure deals to buy other companies? So just backing up a little bit. So Driver Dave's, what it was is this guy Dave, he actually just started this Lyft company, right, to just drive people to the airport.
That's right.
And that I kind of love that story, because I think on the website, it's just like he was driving his dad or something like that to the airport and just found like a need or like a little niche.
Yeah, he was a Dalhousie student. He's an alum. So I think he probably said, hey, I'm going next Tuesday to the airport. Let's leverage a van. I'm using it anyway. And let's see if I can't get 4 other passengers. And I think that's where the inception was. Dave could speak to that, but that seems how I'm surmising it came about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he just, as an entrepreneur, it just kind of hit, and then he just kept going with it and expanding. So, universities, when I bought, was about 80% of his business, students.
Okay. Yeah.
So affordability, kind of as a student on a budget, paying high rent, high tuition, that was kind of a way for him to get in there and just say, let's just add some asses to some seats, and you're going to benefit and we're going to benefit. And it's kind of taken off from there. Yeah. So my plan was to kind of come in and provide some structure on more of a corporate. So my background is a little more corporate. So I want to, build the brand, flush out what I saw as some challenges within the company. That's taken about 1.5 years, so that's good. I going too fast, too quick would have imploded. Yeah. So I really appreciate looking back on that hydrogen wasn't ready yet, because a new technology, we've been waiting on some parts, tanks, stuff like that. So some tanks. It's specialized tanks for hydrogen. Yeah.
Somehow I was thinking tanks like, army tanks. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, these tanks are specialized. They're like Kevlar coated, and it's like propane, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I think we'll get to that in terms of hydrogen and how that's going to work for vehicles, because I think that's a really fascinating topic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you mentioned that so your company Citadel is all about trying to get hydrogen into vehicles.
Yeah, basically convert hydrogen. So there's a lot of people on the international stage already in their own little compartmentalization has technology that works. So we're trying to not reinvent and start from scratch. We're trying to take parts and pieces out of industry that's already been established.
Okay.
So I'm teamed up with a company called Scotiaway Energy that's doing commercial solar in the city right now under Dr. Solar. And the CEO is basically, he's an inventor, let's call it. I think he has a physics background and some accounting background. So he's a perfect hybrid and he has a passion for Formula One racing. So he's going to these races, he's listening to mechanics, he's talking to other people about hydrogen, and they've made up their mind to do hydrogen. And that's kind of when I joined those gentlemen, they kind of said, okay, now you need to go buy a company so that we can flip and scale. So that's kind of where I'm at about a year and a half in.
Okay, so you bought this company in a year and a half. Can you just maybe talk a little bit about what that means in terms of making a deal that's more equity driven as opposed to just showing up with, $500,000 cash and being able to, to buy a company?
Yeah, that's good, Odom, good segue. Capital is everything. You need capital to do a lot of things that you have planned on a business plan. And if you don't, you kind of have to come up with a creative way to find equity or ownership. And that's where Dave and I, it was perfect. He needed to kind of get out and focus on what he was doing, and I needed to get in. So to answer or qualify your question, I guess you have to find the right person and the right fit, and then have a conversation. Like, this wasn't just overnight. Dave and I had several conversations on how we could do that without me going to a big bank lender and give some equity away. Right. That's the other thing. Capital always comes with a cost.
Yeah.
So to do these projects and these initiatives, you have to be creative. And this was the best. And I've surrounded myself with older gentlemen that have done this, have
structured these kinds of deals.
Fell through the pitfalls, understand what a capital venturist or a bank is going to ask for and what it's going to cost you. So listening and surrounding myself with people in the industry that have done this, have been burnt. I take that advice very close and I listen.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if you know this, but online in the entrepreneur space, there's a lot of people that talk about, hey, if you want to do a business, why not think about doing like a boring business and doing these $0 equity deals? So have you heard of any, like there's a girl, Cody Sanchez. She talks a lot about this. I think she worked at Goldman Sachs, and she's really into like, hey, if you want to buy a laundromat or you want to buy these boring businesses that are going to stand the test of time.
Yeah.
But if you don't have capital, just go to the owner and be like, hey, you know what? You're only making 80K or you're making 80K, 100K, whatever, but how about I buy the business and I'll just run it for you, maybe do some upgrades or whatever, and then I'll pay you $20,000 for the next 5 years or something like that, right?
Exactly what we did.
So it seems like it's actually a really good way to go about kind of doing business. But what would you say to someone who's thinking about doing that? And maybe what kind of things do they need to do to have maybe the right people in place to be able to figure out how to structure those deals?
Yeah, what you said there with the right people is exactly bang on. It takes risk. And I've always been, like I said to you before this, my wife and I are opposite in ideology. I'm absolutely that risk taker. I'm on the edge. I'm not complacent in a job or a pension. So from Alberta, I did a lot of that corporate and I built that foundation. But basically after COVID happened, it was hard to find some work. So I finally said, I'm going to do this for myself. I've been branch manager. I've been account manager. And I've seen P&Ls and I've seen how much money the company makes. And I finally said, I'm just going to do that. So quite literally a leap of faith. I'm going to regret this if I don't. I've talked to my family and friends about doing this. I'm finally going to do that. And like a fight, you don't know what's going to happen until you get punched in the face. And I just jumped in.
Yeah.
And to the chagrin of my wife and, a bank account, it does take that sacrifice, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. And now on the other side of it, I'm starting to see it. But I'm certainly not that person that's going to sit down and really, it's going to sound weird, but I don't look at the numbers in the business. I do more of go to nature and clear my brain and see how I visualize it.
Right.
So I guess visualization is a big thing for me. I believe in manifesting your own reality. I believe in creating your own destiny sort of thing. So, and of course that takes steps and that takes mechanisms, surrounding yourself with good people, like you said. So I really listen to sage advice. I am not very good technically on the computer, so I surround myself with people that are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't try to be the everything.
The jack of all trades, master of none.
Because then I'm going to be spread thin and I'm not going to be able to do what I do best. And I believe that's the personal aspect of business. And there still is a need for it because we're still seeing it in our customer base. A lot of people are going to AI, which is good, but I'm trying to strike a balance between the personal approach on how I,
Yeah.
as a younger gentleman, remember business, and there's still that personal aspect, and what's going forward. So I'm not naive on what's coming up, and I'm going to utilize those tools because I'm lacking in a lot of them. And if AI can supplement any of that for me, great.
Yeah.
But basically surrounding my people that like what they're doing, are good at it, and then I can focus on other things.
Yeah, the things that you do best. I think that's
Exactly.
a really good point, and I think people need to understand this, is that when you're going out to be in business, I guess if you're a solopreneur, sometimes you just have to wear some different hats or whatever, which is okay to kind of learn things.
Yeah.
But the sooner that you can surround yourself with people that can take some of that load of the things that you're not good at,
Mhm.
let them do that to help you focus on the things that you know you need to do to make sure your business is a success. It's
Yeah.
something that's been pretty hard for me to learn and try to figure out, because I am this one person kind of solopreneur right now.
Yeah.
But the faster that I can get people that can help me out do the things that I'm not that great at, and I can focus on interacting with people, trying to do the things that are actually going to grow the business, as opposed to me just having a job in a sense, right?
That's right. And
Yeah.
getting worn down by the day to day. Because if you try to control all of it, and that's another thing, the word control. I've always had, I'm opposite. Like I don't need to be in control. I do for bigger decisions, but
course.
I'm fine with being okay to defer to somebody else on things I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard for a lot of people that might want to have all that control, whereas I'm kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
I actually need a little more diligence on
Yeah.
being more engaged.
It's like those bosses that you might have had that are just the micromanagers that need to get into anything. It's like, you don't even know how to do this. Just shut up and let me do my job. Just leave me the hell alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And coming from a corporate world, I had a lot of those. And the higher you went in that corporate world, the worse it got.
Oh, really? Eh?
For me personally, it just
Yeah.
seemed like, I call it the narcissistic ladder where,
Okay. Yeah.
where, but they're driving and they're whipping, budgets, were never stable or balanced. It was just 15% every year over year, and it was unsustainable
Mhm.
because they're reporting to somebody else, right? There's a board of directors, there's shareholders. So if you take that layers away of that corporate, I call it corporate, it was so relieving and breath of fresh air to be your own boss and to do things your own way. Of course, the profits and all that go with it, but it was just, that's what I was craving is that freedom,
Yeah.
that sovereignty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot from entrepreneurs, just craving freedom and sovereignty. And you made a really good point too about keeping yourself open to, like you're saying, going out in nature and just thinking about where the company's going to go, or just having a vision. I think that's really important to be able to free yourself, to be able to have that vision. And if you can't kind of strategize or just kind of see, like, why are you even doing this? Like, what's to come? I think that, I don't know, it could probably put you in a really bad place for starting a business. And maybe you need to spend a little bit more time thinking about what it is that you want and why you're doing it.
Exactly. I would coin that as two words: intention and balance. So coming out to Nova Scotia, I really found, I was probably about 42 when I got here. So I did also go through kind of in a personal, more of a spiritual, I guess you would call it spiritual awakening. And that's where the repulsiveness of corporate kind of wears, and how I can't do this any longer. And if I was in a pension job, I would just be, there's no end. So I literally had a chrysalis of my own self, and I had to reinvent myself. And COVID helped with that. It kind of, I would probably procrastinated long enough to just stay in a corporate job because it's safe. But COVID had, good things and bad things come out of it. It really forced me personally to make that decision.
Yeah.
Because
It forced a lot of people.
It forced a lot of people in a lot of ways. And the stress of the pressure of, there is pressure. There's the other side of owning your own company. If sales go and you're the only one, that's a different kind of pressure. So that's where I really find balance in nature. Driving, you could call it meditation. I wasn't that person that could just sit in that lotus pose and go to another place. I need to be playing hockey, driving, some place where my brain is just allowed to kind of take that little vacation. And that's where, for me personally, the good stuff and the planning and all those jigsaw puzzles in my head for business or personal life or wherever always come together, because there's solace, there's quiet out in nature, and you're grounded. And that's where you can really have an inner conversation and say, where am I going? What do I need to do? And just have that space. So I absolutely prioritize that balance.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. Okay. So going back to the business, so you said you bought it in about a year and a half ago and you kind of structured the deal. What
Yeah.
did the business look like when you first bought it?
Hmm.
And then kind of where are you kind of taking it?
Sure. So Dave is a multitasker, and he, like I said, he's brilliant. I call him the cyborg, but he did have a lot of things going on simultaneously, and that's not my style. I'm more, like I said, balanced, and more customers don't necessarily mean a better business.
Mm.
So people are still running businesses. So I personally, I dove into the staff and really looked at the difference between, so I have drivers and I have dispatch. The drivers are the ones that are the machine, they're the wheel and the cog. But in my opinion, the dispatch was the nucleus of my company. So I really had to look at that, treat them, because it's fast paced when it's fast paced, and then it's slow when it's slow. So in those fast paces, I didn't want to overload them.
Mm.
So I kind of, at the beginning, for the first 6 months, I just learned, absorbed.
Just observing what's going on, and then you could,
fire hose. I had all these exciting ideas as a first-time business owner, and a lot of people, and Dave's just like, slow down, you're only 3 months in. Don't make a change to your system yet because you don't fully understand it.
Right.
So glad I listened. I had no choice. I just was keeping up, drinking from the fire hose. So observing, and then these little flare-ups would come with staff and people, but really providing, once again, balance to my business. The drivers and certain things weed themselves out. The ideology of a new owner is different from the past. So there's some staff members that loved it and some people that didn't.
Right.
But I really had to kind of just implement my vision, and it's always been people. Support the people. I came from a company in Alberta where you would have equity ownership. So I want to get to that, where WestJet, their service went up when you had a little skin in the game, and you had
just a little bit, give somebody something to attain for. It's like, if I do good and help the company do better, I benefit as well.
Always.
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
You're investing in your people, and you're investing in your own company. So it's going to be sustainable if your people and your business is healthy. So I had to kind of, like I said, the first 6 months is just to hang on and see what was going on, and then start slowly making changes. Looking for capital, billing it, seeing it, and then implementing it.
Yeah. Did you have any experience managing people, or was this a completely new thing where all of a sudden you have, like, what was the employee count?
So we have probably about 20 drivers, and at the time we had 5 dispatch.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not a small amount of people to just kind of go in and like, okay, now if I'm kind of I'm managing all this stuff. So did you have any experience managing, or?
Yes. In Alberta, I was 17 years in an oil and gas company, which is a 180 coming out here.
Yeah, no kidding, hey?
But so I was a branch manager of a company, yeah. And then I was the head of a $200 million supply chain account with Canadian Natural Resources on the oil side. So absolutely.
So you have experience handling big accounts and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
But I imagine though there's still a sense of that's a little bit different because it's your own baby now. This is the first time I've had something that's 100% my own.
Exactly. And that's when I go to nature and I remember what I'm doing and who I am. Yeah. You really have to know yourself and your limitations. And sometimes the ego can block that or pretend like it doesn't happen. You have to be truthful, and you have to find courage to say what you are and what you are not.
Yeah.
And then stick to that and guide, and let that be your beacon.
Yeah. That's super amazing advice. Okay. So you have this company, it's going really well. You're kind of putting your stamp on it. And can you tell me how hydrogen fits into this? Because to me, that it sounds like hydrogen is something that's even better than like an electric vehicle or what have you. So I don't know. I don't know where to start, but maybe you can kind of start, then we go from there. And
to preface, I'm the person that was told to go buy the company. So I'm certainly not technical, but I've absorbed through osmosis a lot of this. And the key concept coming out of that meeting with the gentleman at Wood Group said, EVs are just not going to, the raw minerals, China's bought up a lot of our rare earth minerals. I was in mining before this. I could see it when I was visiting places. It's just not the supply chain around the the fueling.
And just this is really to make
charging.
the batteries, right? For
Exactly. Exactly.
And you heard stories of stuff getting mined in the Congo and the kids working in there and all that kind of stuff. It's like, that doesn't sound like it's a really sustainable green thing, right?
Exactly. And that's a good segue. So we're doing green hydrogen. So these gentlemen over at Scotiaway Energy are doing great things with the intention to finally get back to zero emissions, green energy. You're not taking, or there's not a backdoor on EVs are, but you have big loaders on these mine sites that are emitting
all
diesel.
kinds of shit.
But it's the new thing, and then it's got to happen. So and I can't say that once again, I can't be that person that came and made a lot of money from oil and gas. But literally, when I came here, there's no well tie-ins. There's not much offshore stuff. So I had to reinvent myself and find out where I play, my placement here. We're surrounded by water. So, water sustainability, I was kind of flirting with a little bit of oil spill remediation, still am. Where am I going here? Okay, so hydrogen. So, so the green hydrogen, like I said, these gentlemen have a great business already. They're going to get into hydrogen as a diesel replacement for generators in houses too. So they have a big plan on how to convert the sun with solar into green hydrogen. So basically, in layman's terms, you're using the sun to electrify water molecules that separates it into the hydrogen, into the fuel cell.
The H2O from the water.
Exactly. You're taking the H, taking it to the left on the fuel cell, and then the water is emitted in the back with a water vapor.
And that would be like what would come out of the exhaust, just pure water.
Pure water, which helps, with our oceans, our streams, our lakes, because what happened here recently, our water is getting affected.
Well, we had the power went out just for half an hour or something like that, and then boil water advisory for days.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem to be getting any better. So once you have something in a business that is actually going to tangibly do something good, it's a little bit more motivating. Like, I'm impatient, so it has taken a little longer, but that's new technology. We're breaking into a new market, but there is a lot of federal and provincial subsidies to do this. So once again, I'm listening and learning to these gentlemen that are saying, okay, you're going to apply for these loans and that's where the capital comes in. So I'm going to, under the Emissions Act, or, what are we at, 2030 for emissions reduction?
Right.
There is incentives. So there is a plan. Let's call that my business plan. So I'm actively following that. But we have a test. We're going to make a modular unit on a horse trailer. It's a 20-foot horse trailer. We have a tank, solar panels, electrolyzer, and some piping. There's more to it, but that's the simplest version. And that will be allowed to scale slowly. So I'm going to take one, maybe two vehicles, convert them over to hydrogen, and Toyota is already making a car called a Mirai. So the idea is to maybe get some funding and go get 3 of these, rip the guts out of it, basically the hydrogen fuel cell, and then put it into any vehicle you want. So I want to start, like, I have a 4Runner. I'm probably going to do it with that. Looking at a 12-passenger bus, I would like to do it with that, and then eventually get into 5 tons. So work out the kinks, convert these vehicles over in a fleet of 1 to 3, maybe operate that for 8 to 12 months, and then scale. And that's the plan. But in that 6 to 8 months, we're going to work out the kinks. We're going to understand kilometers. We're going to understand when the sun's shining, how much hydrogen we can store, so that, like EV is facing, you're not going to get stuck when you're out in Yarmouth on a run and you've run out of hydrogen and you have to call the tow truck.
Right.
So we're going to start small. Most of our delivery, our passenger deliveries are from the airport to downtown HRM. So
so not too far away.
Yeah, 100 kilometers, I think, return.
Yeah.
And we maybe do 3 of those. So we've done a lot of that, an analysis on what it's going to take. And then once again, I said we're going to scale. So the idea is to have a modular unit to start, maybe at my house or maybe at a remote place that you can go to and do that. And then we'll have a permanent facility on about 300 acres, with half of that being solar. And then have permanent stations, and then strategically put those around the province.
So is it something, so I'm just trying to picture how this technology works in the most lamest term possible. So is it a station that is built up, that has a bunch of solar panels, that is doing the conversion of, like, basically you're taking water and just putting it through this system, and then it converts the hydrogen into oxygen, or the water to hydrogen and oxygen.
Yep.
And then you just take that hydrogen and then fill up the tank
Yes.
in the car. Okay.
Yeah,
So the car itself is not doing the hydrogen conversion. Like, you're not putting water into the car like you would at a gas station. You're filling it with hydrogen instead. That is made off site or off the car, I guess.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to do. There are other, companies, Toyota, that already has hydrogen fuel cells. But for this purpose, these gentlemen already have a solar company, commercial and residential. So we're utilizing in that, and that's our best approach.
Got it. That's why that makes sense. Because you're partnering with these guys that already have the solar, so they already have the energy. Yeah. Okay.
And I think the big units like buses, trains, etc., that will go hydrogen are probably at about $39 a kilogram. We're probably going to produce at around $2.50. So
significantly cheaper.
Exactly. Yeah. And these guys' recipe, and they have it, and they know how to do it. So I was lucky enough to be asked and joined. And now, like I said, I just show up and I listen and I try to absorb as much. But basically they said, you're going to be the person you're part of this.
Yeah.
At the beginning, go buy a transportation company.
Yeah.
And that's what I focused on.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So you got the transportation company, and then you have, I guess, Citadel, which is, I don't know if it's the holding company for this or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then that's going to be, so you're out there, you're kind of thinking about what's your vision. So what is your vision for Citadel? Where do you see it going in the next, 5 years or so?
Perfect. And one thing I haven't mentioned is I do have Métis status from Alberta. So I've joined up with another gentleman called Walter Daigle with It's a Time for Change. And this gentleman has worked with the government for the last 20 years on Indigenous liaisons. So through Truth and Reconciliation, there's a lot of capital set aside for Truth and Reconciliation. And they want to get their money in play where it actually helps the environment.
Yeah.
So to qualify your question is to actually, I go camping 4 times a year in this beautiful province, Risser's Beach. There's so many beaches. And, you talk to people, our oysters are in trouble because our water, like how is our water, one of our 4 basic elements, not protected vehemently? How are those laws in this, this public, we're going to protect the environment, but behind the scenes, we're dumping. Anyways, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but my vision and what I want to do is to actually do something tangible for the environment. And like I said, I'm 180 from oil and gas into this, but this beautiful province I've been in for 11 years now has shown me that it's worth protecting. And there's an economic boom, and there's a fastest growing province, so people are coming fast. We have to be careful. We have to be sustainable on how we go forward, or else, not to talk bad about Vancouver, but there's going to be a similar situation where it's out of control and we've lost it. And this province is too special to allow that. So I'm here to protect it so that my daughters can take their children to a beach and an ocean and not have, a rash on their feet or drinking water. Like we all talk about this environment changing, which it is, but we don't action anything.
Yeah.
So,
or it's almost as if it's just like fake action, or it's just almost like, hey, I'm going to make these announcements or whatever, but it's almost like just virtue signaling. We're not actually doing anything.
Exactly.
That's what I feel like for nowadays when you're talking about the electric vehicles. It's like, if you look at that in the whole, it seems like it's just as carbon intensive as a combustion engine, or maybe even more so, just because of the chemicals and all the processes to even make a battery and all that kind of stuff. So that's amazing. I really love what you're saying too about just actually making a difference in the environment. Now, maybe you could educate me on this, because I don't know too much about the government and what they're doing.
Sure.
But you think there's this huge play on this net zero, and we want to do all this stuff for the environment. And there's that fund that was out that's getting into a little bit of a heat with the RTC. It's like a scandal or whatever, because they had all these hundreds of millions of dollars put in that it was supposed to be for green initiatives.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe so a 2-part question is that there's got to be lots of money for somebody like you who actually wants to make a difference. So maybe you could talk about that. But then is it a thing too where is a lot of the government funding that they're making for these kinds of things just going, like, is it just lining their own pockets or whatever? Because why is this a scandal? Why isn't it not going to companies that are actually doing good? It's very strange to me.
Like any company, there's good and bad people. And then I think with even the government, there's good and bad initiatives. So some, like, for example, a lot of this capital is there, but it's hard to figure out the paperwork and to qualify.
Yeah.
That's where this Indigenous aspect is so good for me personally is because they have the capital and they are the ones looking to for joint ventures and liaisons for companies like myself, but with the initiative and the intent to actually preserve forests, trees, anything, the air, fisheries. So so that's kind of and to skip back. My plan also is to, seafood in this province, valley vegetables. So I really want to get to a point where I'm, on the 102 or wherever with a fleet of 5 tons that are sustainably bringing seafood and vegetables to market or to restaurants or to farmers markets. My business model is going to reduce, what is it, $1.60 a liter of carbon?
Yeah, 165, 170. Yeah.
So for me to bring that price down, in today's world, everything's going up. So I want to also be able to make it affordable for a family to come visit Nova Scotia, so you can take a hydrogen vehicle for driver days and not pay, $80. I'm going to still take, as a business owner, my margin, but I'm also going to start reverting those rates and give it back to the customers.
Yeah.
But also, if you want to go buy organic carrots right now, it's probably $7, $8. Sobeys is selling those chlorine carrots for whatever, $5. I want to, with my business model, I really want to go in and be able to make our vegetables, the good vegetables, the organic ones coming from the valley, affordable. And that's every job that I've worked at is freight is always the number one cutting into profits. So if I can reduce that by half, corporations, corporate customers are going to come to me and say, okay, we want to use your Indigenous sponsored green hydrogen transportation company.
Yeah.
So that is my ultimate 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And employ, equity ownership for my employees, create a co-op. One business owner doesn't have to take all of that, right?
Yeah.
How much is enough? Like if this goes
That's
great.
an interesting point. Yeah.
Right. Like if this goes great and there's millions of dollars on the table because this is a new energy, awesome. But I'm not going to be the only one.
It's going to benefit from it.
It's going to benefit. I want to create something that change, really.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the Indigenous company's called It's a Time for Change. And he's bang on with his slogan. It is time for change. The old system of everything, transportation, money, everything, as you can look in North America right now, is broken.
Yeah.
So I want to be a steward in that new change where we have to. There is no, like you said, we can't just talk about doing these changes anymore, and government can't just say we're doing it and walk around with a piece of paper and never action anything, because who knows what the next political party is going to be in. And we're not going to do anything because there's only a year and a half left and the Conservatives might get in. So we have all these plans. We've identified the problem, but we're not going to action them.
Yeah.
I'm finally going to take that into my own hands and action it so that, once again, everything's affordable and it's sustainable for the environment, because we only have one environment. And we only have one element called water.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, to me, it sounds like what you're talking about obviously sounds amazing, and it seems to me like you're like the right person to do it, which is just phenomenal. And it seems like it would be great slogans even for the government to get on board. So it's like, hey, we funded this company, we did this thing. Like, hey, we got fresh vegetable. Like, what is it that Pierre Poilievre says? He always like, oh, the farmers grow the food and take the food. Well, because he's doing his whole like access tax speech or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is like actually doing something where we're going to make it super cheap to transport the food, which, like you said, it's huge. People don't think about where the food comes from. Like, it's getting shipped and transported all over. And not only can you make it cheaper, you can make it cleaner so that the trucks and whatever that are transporting it are just spewing out like oxygen or water or whatever. Whatever. You know,
water vapor.
Clean, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's just amazing. It's just like a win-win for everybody.
Well, yeah, because this produce and this seafood is coming from the areas that I'm going to protect. So it's a truly sustainable business plan.
Yeah.
And why would we not? Right?
Yeah.
We've taken for too long, and look at the crisis we're in. Our oysters in Atlantic Canada are dying. Green bloom, we can't drink our own water. Like, when do we finally say, and everybody's standing up and the environment. Yeah. But you're still buying Amazon. Right? Like, Amazon is another example. I would love to get into that supply chain and offer our hydrogen vehicles. So I don't know.
You're ready, that's I know you probably have in your mind, this is the 10, 15 years down the road. Oh man, we could do some real damage here.
Exactly. So that
in a good way.
In a good way. So that anything that comes into Atlantic Canada is emitting water, which look at Newfoundland, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia and PEI. They're all by the water
Yep.
and reliant on the water.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
Another analogy and another little side project I'm doing is oil spill remediation, but not with a chemical like Corexit. It's actually a non-mechanical. So if there's an oil spill, these supply vessels would have a pump that would just centrifuge a pump, and then it would activate after about 5 minutes of an oil spill and start like lawn mowing the oil.
Okay.
And then an inflatable bladder would come, you just pump it in, and then there's no displacement. So currently, our Canadian government has a chemical called Corexit that is the official oil spill remediation.
Okay. What does it do, and how does it work?
Kills microbes and falls to the bottom of the ocean, out of sight, out of mind. So ExxonMobil is the one that creates Corexit. So you're basically allowing a major oil company to be in charge of oil spill.
And they get paid for it too. So
they get paid.
It's almost as if they could be like, oh, how do we increase how much money is in our bottom line this quarter? Oh, maybe we'll just spill something and get hired to clean it up and then get some extra revenue. That's insane.
Right. So crazy. Atlantic Canadians, like, lobster, scallops, like one oil spill in these waters. And now that the Arctic is opening up, and say goodbye to your livelihood, say goodbye to your leisure on a beach, Rainbow Haven, Crystal Crescent, any of those are going to
hot spots.
That oil is going to go somewhere.
Yeah. So
once again, like you go down that rabbit hole. We were talking about rabbit holes earlier, and I was naive to think what would happen for an oil spill in Canada. And then I met a gentleman, and he owns a company, and for the last 15 years, he's been trying to get his technology into the Coast Guard, into Canadian, into Ottawa, basically. And nope.
It's a hard slog to get past I don't know if you want to say the money men or whatever.
It's always the money.
Yeah. Follow the money, I guess, as they say.
Follow the money.
Yeah. This is totally an aside, but back in university, when my wife was doing biotech stuff, she was actually working on this project. This was back in like 1998 or 1999, about these actually developing a specific types of bacteria that you can deploy into oil fields or oil spills that would actually almost eat the oil and just be able to biodegrade it internally into something else. Have you heard of anything like that in your?
Yeah, in the oil patch, we had it's like sawdust almost, where if there was a spill off the wellhead, you would put this powder or the sawdust down, and like you said, it would eat it.
Okay, so it's like there's a biochemical thing in the dust. Okay,
yeah. And I don't know exactly if this Corexit does something similar, but I think it adheres to it and then it sinks to the bottom of the ocean.
Okay, yeah, that might be a little different, but yeah, it's not getting rid of it in a sense, right? Because it's attaching to the oil on the spill, and then it's just making it more dense than seawater and just sinks to the bottom.
Exactly. So from the BP spill in California to Florida, like there's a layer of oil on the bottom of the ocean that's just sitting there. Yeah. It doesn't go away.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah.
That's gonna be there for what oil? That's like millions of years, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It just sits there.
Exactly. Plastics and oils, which is oil, plastics.
Yeah. The whole microplastics is a whole other thing that's getting into the water and whatever. I've heard stuff people are talking about it. It's in everything. Like everyone's body, like breast milk, it's in infants that are like just being born, it's just everywhere. And it into our brains as well too, because I guess it's pretty fat soluble. So it kind of collects in our brains.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to think.
And that's probably why all these, mental health issues are happening.
Just another thing to that's crazy. Okay, so that's really cool. So I have a few more like entrepreneurial type questions, I guess, to ask you. So I know you have lots of experience, obviously, in your private the work that is it private sector, I guess you would say. Okay. So if you can go back in time to kind of talk to your 20-year-old self or what have you, with the experience that you have now, and because you seem to be really like enjoying entrepreneurship and actually making a difference, like what kind of advice would you give to yourself?
And I literally have done that. Just keep doing what you're doing and absorb as much as you can, because on the other side of this, once 20-year-old Rick or 40-year-old Rick, I doubted myself. Like, can I do that? Right? That's that big question. Can I do this? And looking back, all those things that I was doing, be it a paper route at 10 years old, washing dishes, like I literally went from cleaning the offices where I worked at Midfield to the biggest account. And it was hard work. It was saying yes a lot, networking for sure. That's why I also like playing hockey 3 days a week. I love the camaraderie. I love meeting new people. That's why I'm sitting here today with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Networking, but be yourself and work hard, and then trust yourself. So looking back, when you're in the moment and you forgot about the last 20 years, you're like, can I do this? I went for a walk one day and I kind of looked back at everything I did and I laid it out and I said, yeah, I have that experience. It was kind of a real life experience. And that's, I'm a self-made man. I didn't go to university. I kind of literally started, as a janitor of that company and then to the top account in Canada, third in North America. And
Well, that's almost like another story in itself. That's
yeah,
amazing.
and I just was myself and hard work. But looking back, I kind of already had that foundation. I had that experience to do what I'm going to do. And then also with the intention, which is big, to be a boss or an owner that gives back and is aware and conscious of the system. Am I actually doing something? Are these employees happy? Because there's more than just making money in a business, which is important, but
It's important, yeah, for sure. If you're not making money, you don't have a business. But
exactly like what we
still.
talked about earlier, that drive for the capital always is important, but it's not everything. I wanted to be, once again, bring that word balance back into it. So I want to be a good boss. I want to help people. I want to support, our economy is going in a scary way. So I want to be able to make other people sovereign. I'm going to make myself sovereign and then make other people
Yeah.
sovereign. I'm going to make my business sustainable and then I'm going to spread that. So, I have all the tools. I have all the experience. I remember everything I've done for 20 years. I'm grateful for it. I'm in a new chapter, but I'm going to bring that with me.
Yeah.
And when difficulty or a decision comes, I'm going to revert inside and go through all that and remember.
Yeah, it's really using the stuff that you've done in the past and all the experiences you had really helps solidify you into the person that you are now. Because obviously, the experiences that we had, good or bad, they help shape and define who you are today.
Yeah.
So that's a really good thing. You bring up a really good point about having employees that are enjoying the work that they do. Like, how important do you think that is to give them that sense that, number one, they have a good job and that they get into work feeling like they're making a difference and that they actually enjoy what they do?
Yeah. Third thing, when I, realized I was going to be an owner was that intention. I've been on the other end of that a lot. And I remember the first time my company offered me equity ownership, Class C shares or something. When I got that first dividend at the end of a hard year, I was elated and I was motivated. I read a stat in stats or stats, but I read a stat like 75 to 80% of people right now in their current job are not happy or not fulfilled.
I'm even surprised it's that low, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. We're all just making amends so that we can have our little quarter of our time to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's exhausting and it's deflating. So I want to create, and I think that's old way. That's the old way of doing things. And we need to change and we need to reinvent ourselves because looking at everything, our economy, our environment, everything, it's broken. There's no other way to say it. It is broken. And to be a steward of change, I have to think differently.
Yeah.
Unconventional mindset.
Yeah.
So with that, employees are everything. I can't do all of it. So I'm literally investing in those people and I'm pretending like they're myself 20 years ago. And I was given that opportunity or that shot or that equity ownership, that piece of that pie. Once everybody has a little piece of that pie, and if we start doing more of that for people, I follow the golden rule, do unto others. Why would I want anything less for my employee that I would want for myself? Once again, I could absorb it all and just take every single profit and be bloated and alone at the top, but that's not going to be sustainable for myself. And that's what the society has brought us to this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's caused us to be out of balance. So we have to, it's sustainability. My employees are sustained. They're happy. My company's happy. It's just a homeostasis in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's even, I don't know if it's ironic or what have you, but it's like when you're not even focused about making money per se as your ultimate goal, it just happens that you even make more money than you would if you weren't. You know what I mean? Because the environment is so good. People love what they do. People are happy. Then the customers end up being happy because like, oh, I really love going to driver date because not only do I get a good ride, I have a great chat with them and, I could just be myself and it's just a good time for everyone. And that's like, hey, I'm actually doing good for the environment as well too. It just all comes back together.
The law of attraction and exactly, you get what you put out. So I have to emit and set that precedence as a boss. And I'm really mindful of the law of attraction. And, we're all energy beings, and you're emitting and you're attracting.
Yep.
It's physics.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if I'm emitting something and creating a culture, like you said, another word for that is creating a culture, and that's top down, is that exactly. And I want to grow a garden, and I want everybody to be sustained off that garden.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting point. So for me, I'm still new in my entrepreneur, in my business. And I'm thinking that hopefully sometime within the next year, I can start bringing on some additional people to help me.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping that in mind of creating the law of attraction, creating a garden and what have you, what advice would you maybe give me to keep in mind as I'm starting to build a team? Like what things should I think about what I need to do in culture, or should I just have the mindset of being open to, creating just a nice place for people to kind of grow in, or should I have something specific in mind?
3 words that came to me is trust, know yourself, and there was a third one. Trust in yourself, know yourself, and then implement it. Trust and courage. Courage is the third word. You need courage because you're about to take that big step. You have to really trust that the universe is going to send back what you're emitting. And that for me was a big, you want to be safe. You want your bills to be paid. You want that comfortability.
Comfort, yeah.
But that's also breeds complacency. So, just trust and really use your discernment to what you want. Kick those pebbles around on what it looks like. So that's, once again, when I go to my quiet space or I go find a moment of reflection, I really dial into what I want. For me, I'm a visual person, so I write a lot of these down. Like my wife, a piece of cardboard, and she's like, "What's that?" I was like, "That's my 3-year business plan." She's like, "What do you mean?" It's not professional, but it doesn't have to be, because we're creators of our own reality, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And once you emit that frequency or that vibration, you're naturally, polarity is going to dictate you're going to receive that back.
Yeah.
Especially if you're dialed in. Like if you're confused and if you don't know, if you're lost.
Like you don't really know yourself. Yeah. How do you know what to even put out?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So take some time, define what you want, play with it. It's a piece of Play-Doh. You're pliable. You said the most important part was you're pliable and you're open.
Yeah.
What do you tell somebody that knows everything? Nothing, because they already know everything. You're open-minded. I was going into this open-minded, and I'm listening. And then that allows the door or the polarity or serendipity activities. A gentleman. I wouldn't, my partners, I met them just at happenstances at an event.
Yeah.
And just looked at the guy. He looked at me. Do I know you? No. What are you here for? And then that's morphed into that.
Right.
So always being willing to go on a podcast, for a lunch with somebody, literally just being open and pliable.
Yeah. You never want to know what's going to happen from it.
Exactly. Like our lives are also destined. There's some free will and some destiny, but a match and a balance in between those two things, the universe will, if you're meant to do what you're going to do, it will supplement. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's really amazing point. So I think what I'm hearing for this is, be open. Don't really go in saying, I'm going to have this culture and that's it, and just try to force people in it. Just kind of let things kind of flow organically, which is really good, because it reminds me of one of the first jobs I have at university. I was talking about this before to somebody, and I absolutely hated it. I knew from the minute I sat down on the chair the first day that it wasn't for me. And these guys there was only 4 actual employees, and it was kind of software. And they had a list of manual this thick of all the things you could or could not do. And it came to a point where I sat down at my desk. It was 9:01. And then I could hear the guy just across the room, very, very small, like 10 meters away. And he's typing for like 20 minutes. And then I get this email saying how important it is to be at your desk exactly on time, and how this is the company rules. This is what you're supposed to do, for being literally 1 minute late. And I was like, these guys are just trying to force this type of culture. Not even saying like, hey, well, what happened? Was there anything happened with the family? Whatever. It's just like, no, these are the rules. I don't care about whatever.
Yeah.
We expect this from you, to just almost like shut up and just do your job. And yeah, it was just such a bad experience. And I think that was pretty much the exact opposite of what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds like a prison.
Yeah. They're no longer in business. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, and exactly. You're going to get back always what you're putting out, and it's a top-down effect. And I've seen it. I've had pitfalls in it, of course. Like every entrepreneur is going to get kicked in the teeth.
Yeah. It's as long as you can get back up, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's life. That's in many facets. So the perseverance, the hard work, and trust. Like you've said it a couple times, and it's just trusting in what you're doing.
Yeah.
That it'll carry through in the universe. Once again, will provide.
Yeah. So you said this quite a bit here, but I think maybe we'll try to see if we summarize it in this kind of question.
Sure.
So for a new entrepreneur, a new business owner that's looking to get into this space and looking to go out, what would you say is the most important thing for them to kind of consider when they're about to do this venture?
The appetite and the thought to do it, because thoughts are electromagnetic and it's sending once again out to the universe. So the universe is going to supplement. So as soon as you have that intention and energy to do that, the law of attraction is going to send that back. So you've already done it. If you're thinking about it, you're already there. Then trust the timing, right? Use your discernment. Is it now? Is there, is this market going a different way? Can I separate myself from my competition? But if you're thinking about it, like I was for, 10, 15 years, I've always wanted to run my own business. Once I was a branch manager and I looked at the P&Ls and EBITDA and I saw the money and where it was going. And, I said, well, I want to do this for myself. And then you talk to people, you're in a locker room. Hey, how did you do it? What we're doing here right now.
Yeah.
But I think you've already done it, Autumn. If you're thinking about it, that's your first step.
Yeah.
And then for me personally, like I said, I'm always on that edge. My wife's the stable nester and I'm the bee pollinating out there on the edge. I just said, F it, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
But I didn't want that regret.
Yeah.
Right. And it was time. COVID it got rid of all my excuses.
Yeah. Yeah. For a lot of people. So it's good too, though, that you're saying these things that, your wife, you're saying, you guys do have different polarities. But at the same time, though, you're still, sounds like you're working together as a team and you have that kind of support from the family, because you kind of need that as well, too, because you don't want to have a rough home life and just throws everything out of balance.
And it was, that's what, it's all talking nice here, but there is a lot of tough conversations, a lot of credit card bills, a lot of what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why is it taking so long? Why is that hydrogen tank from Louisiana 6 months past when they said it was going to be?
Yeah.
Why don't you, there's a lot of that, but we are opposite, but opposites attract, right? Yeah. Positive, yin and yang symbol. There's a lot of signatures in nature to do that. And I just became aware of that. And then I'm lucky. Gratitude. Autumn, gratitude.
That's huge.
It's huge. What do I not have? Because once again, you're emitting that to the universe. I'm lacking. I don't have. But if I focus on what I already have, then I'm going to attract more of that.
Yeah.
And that business, absolutely. You carry your business life and your personal life. They're combined because you're never off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That was another big thing, a change in my schedule. Like I'm sleeping when I can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting phone calls at 11 o'clock at night, problem with the Square tablet, problem with this. Like you're on all the time.
Yeah.
But, my daughters are older now. I have more free time. I'm not that, they're not little and I have that time. So really had to be pliable with my schedule and when I work. And I can't just clock off from 8 to 5. I kind of have to keep going. And that was a big struggle for me is to kind of always be on.
Do you have any routines or anything that you've developed? Like, do you do anything in the morning? Like, this is my morning routine, or do you just go with the flow?
I go with the flow.
You do, eh? Okay.
I do, with some sort of structure. Like that's what I'm talking about. Differences in my wife. She's structured. She has that.
Right.
Whereas myself is I just react kind of,
I can totally relate, by the way, because my wife and I are kind of the same thing. She's like, what's happening this time? And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but you make it work, right?
Exactly. And you're open. And once again, the universe is going to say, bam, you're going to get that phone call or that text that, okay, now I have to be here. And if you were scheduled or locked into something else, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Right. Yeah. No, that's amazing. So I thought of is, you bought a new business, and a lot of people say when they buy a new business or they come across a new business that they want to try to do some things to modernize it. So of course yours is a little bit different because you're talking about going to the hydrogen game, which is a completely different game. But are there any things in the way that the business is currently running now that you're like, you know what? Maybe I could do these things to make it better. Like maybe I could up the technology, or maybe I could change the way that people book, their rides, right?
Absolutely. And we did talk about this before. And once again, for the first 6 months, just to hang on to see, I knew that our system wasn't the best, but it was good enough.
Right.
But then some issues started coming up through that Indigenous fund. There are some grant money that you can digitize your system.
Right.
Tried to figure out, it was hard. They're reapplying that. So I'm going to look for capital absolutely to get into an app. But I also, I had 3 older ladies call last week and said, I'm so happy that your service is here. I get to call in. I'm not very good booking online.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be that billionaire. I don't want to be Elon Musk in that fashion where it's just, like you said, about profits. I want to provide a service.
Yeah.
Balanced, so the employees are happy, the customers are happy, and it's accommodating for everybody.
Yeah. You could almost do it 2 ways with technology, because what's great is like you can develop an app or whatever that's modern for the young guys. But you can still have that phone number right on the website where people can just call in.
Exactly.
So you could, best of both worlds, really.
And some people in computer, AI's coming on. I'm hearing everything about AI. People in the back of the passenger. I do some of my own rides because I'm the face of the company. I really like getting on that ground level.
But that's really good for you to get an ear for what the customers are saying. Right?
Exactly. And AI, a lot of the DAL students are, what about AI? What about AI? What about AI?
Yeah.
And like cryptocurrency, if I don't know it, I don't invest in it.
Yeah.
So I'm relying on other people. So I have a really good commander in chief, if you will, lieutenant. His name's Craig, and he's taken a cybersecurity course, and he's upgrading AI, and so we are going to implement that. And I've been told to do it balanced. Don't do the whole system all at once, because then it's gonna crumble in a rush.
And if people don't really understand within the company, they don't understand what it's really doing.
Exactly.
How can you fix any problems?
So we identified things, like you said, an app. That's probably the first thing on our list.
Yeah.
Go start with the app so that the newer generation, the students can do it conveniently, that we can compete with the Ubers, et cetera.
Yeah.
So modernize it, but do it incrementally, not all at once, so that we don't implode.
Yeah. Just do that MVP, that small little thing of like, what's the little nugget thing that we can do to deploy in this kind of avenue, and then go from there.
Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be the app to rule it all right off the bat. That doesn't make any sense.
And my impatience, I'm impatient, so I want that all now because I can see it.
Yeah.
And I really have to slow down and do it diplomatic. And that's where I bounce things off my wife, and that opposite polarity, she's a grounding in a lot of things.
Totally different frame of mind to get something that you haven't thought of. It's like, oh, that's actually a good idea.
Exactly.
Being open to listen to the other side.
Exactly. And she can give me 2 paragraphs of how she thinks I should do it. I might take 3 or 4 words out of that, or one bit of advice, and apply it to myself.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I have to kind of rely on myself.
Yeah.
And use my discernment on what works best, knowing the nuances of my own business. Talking to my employees that have been there, 9 years longer than myself.
Yeah.
So you take all that information, and then for me personally, like I said earlier, is I go find a quiet space, and then I put all those puzzles on the ground, and I see where they fit.
See how you can fit it together. That's amazing. So can you maybe talk a little bit, again, I know you're not technical, so maybe you don't know these answers, which is totally okay. But do you have any ideas of how you want to implement AI into your business, or is there just one specific avenue that you're thinking of?
No problem. Tracking flights, because we're tracking flights.
I see where you're going.
Delays, like a lot of the monotonous keystrokes, we want to eliminate, so that it frees up that dispatcher to do other things, chase weddings, corporate events, because there's a lot of mechanical stuff still going on. So it's basically to free up the dispatcher on stuff that AI can do.
Right. Yeah. So the dispatcher almost just has, like, the AI is running in the background. It just pops up and alerts whenever there's a problem. Just let me know. I don't even want to deal with it. I don't want to look at the flight list. Just tell me the things that I need to know when I need to know them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Optimization. And if I can use AI in one facet of that frees up, seconds or minutes for that person to see something else, perfect.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my plan, is to, like I said, incrementally bring those technologies on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. That's really cool. Sorry, that gets more into my wheelhouse, right? Too, because I love doing, programming and all that kind of stuff. Too.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking like, how are you going to get AI in your business? It's like, oh, I'm not quite sure yet, but there's the opportunities there to eliminate like 90% percent of the keystrokes and whatever. So
Exactly.
why not use the tool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I want to leave you here, I guess, with the last word. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I guess one takeaway, we've exhausted everything else. It's just basically invest in yourself, right? Because if you don't invest in yourself, who will? So go easy on yourself. Wake up in the morning and vote for yourself. Change the thoughts of what could go bad to what could go good. And I guarantee you, through trial and error of my own, it will all turn around, and your business, your home life, everything else, your health will follow that trend, because you literally are the emitter. So change the dialogue and the narrative inside of yourself, and overlay it to everything, business, personal life, anything. Because if you wake up and think of 7 things that could go bad with your business,
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. So last comment would be just vote for yourself and hope for yourself, and expect good things.
I love it. That's amazing. Yeah. One of the things I tell my kids is there's kind of this little slogan, like 1%. Try to be just 1% better than you were last week or the day before. Just wake up, compare yourself to you in a sense, not anybody else, and just try to be better.
And hard work. And Odom started off about I'm fast on the ice. I haven't seen anybody most improved, and that's not a slight on your level of when you came in, but the difference of when I first started playing with you to the end is day and night. But you're a very cerebral person. You analyze the game, so you've applied your tools to your game, and do that in your business, and do that all.
And then things will work out.
I
appreciate that. Thank you very much. Because for hockey, for me, I love hockey. I've grown up in hockey. Well, I played road hockey all my life, but I never learned how to skate until I was in my mid-20s. So I was kind of a late bloomer for that, but I just love the game so much.
It's a great game. It networked. It pretty much got every job I've ever had.
It's literally the same thing for me. Yeah.
It's Canadian culture. If you want to slide into a conversation with anybody, and most people in political or business, that lubricant of hockey and our national sport is easy. And I love it. Like you said, I look forward to it. I look forward to playing against you. I look forward to all of the goods and the bad. But a lot of business can be done there. A lot of networking definitely can be done there.
In the change room, in the locker room.
In the locker room. And you're always learning from other guys. And, just be willing to say, what do you do? And that's what you and how we did. What do you do? What do you do? What's your thoughts on that? And then see where it takes you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just brings me just a quick story here to wrap up. Is when I was in university, that's when I kind of learned how to skate, and I was doing some refereeing and stuff. But I ended up getting into a group of professors that were playing hockey. So they just needed somebody. So I just played that one day. And then in the dressing room, there was one professor that I had a class, and I was just talking to him there. I was like, oh yeah, I remember having this class for you or whatever. And then it's like, oh yeah, I was kind of interested in that kind of area. I was like in earth science. And then he's like, oh, well, I'm actually looking somebody to help run my lab or whatever. And then that connection has lasted even till today. We started a company together, and it's just, I got my first job. I was working for him for like 4 or 5 years. So all through just like, hey, let's play some hockey, and how are you doing?
See where it goes. And you're getting exercise.
On top of that.
And a body in motion stays in motion.
Yeah. That's amazing. Great. Rick, thank you so much for joining. We got to do this again. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And thanks again.
Thanks, sir.